Massachusetts has been all over the headlines these last couple of weeks after Republican Scott Brown's surprise victory over Democrat Martha Coakley for senator. Now, some of the discontent with the Democratic Party's leadership stems from economic woes in the state. While national GDP grew at a level of 5.7% last quarter, Massachusetts growth actually fell by 0.2%. So if the winds of change are blowing in Massachusetts, my next guest is certainly riding the wave. State Treasurer Tim Cahill left the Democratic Party back in the summer, and he is now challenging current Governor Deval Patrick to be the state's next governor. He joins us live. Mr. Cahill, great to have you today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Lori.
So considering the Scott Brown win, could the timing have worked out any better for you to switch parties, become an independent, and challenge the current governor?
It doesn't look like it could be any better. I did it back in the summer, but I could feel back then discontent and people really getting tired of both parties and the lack of solutions and the increased partisanship. So I was very surprised, as was everyone else, that it really caught on so quickly. And Scott Brown certainly rode the wave. And sent a clear message, not only to Washington, but to Massachusetts as well, that we've got to change things.
So the Boston Globe reports, as you just alluded to, that you've told supporters you're very frustrated that the state cannot function within its budget and continually ask taxpayers for more money. So that said, are you critical? You must be somewhat right of the governor's $28.2 billion budget proposal for the state.
Yeah, it's very similar to what the president unveiled a week later, which is more spending. I mean, it's $1 billion more money than we have currently, or that we're spending currently. And it means they're predicting more revenue. And as you said earlier in the show, Massachusetts' economy is still contracting. It's been 6 consecutive quarters. So I don't know where the money's going to come from. And if it doesn't materialize, we're going to be in a deficit situation, just like the federal government.
So you must also be referring to that this budget assumes Congress. It assumes Congress will extend increased Medicaid reimbursements, generating an additional $600 million to help balance the state budget. Now, Governor Patrick says he spoke with the White House and that this is a reasonable expectation. Do you agree?
Well, it appears. It's in the budget. And it doesn't seem like Congress is really going to be in a position to cut, or that they're willing to cut. So I would assume if it's in the budget, we'll get our share. What worries me mostly, especially if I'm the next governor, is that all of the stimulus money is going to be gone this year, which means there won't be any stimulus money going forward. And that's when we're going to have to make some serious cuts or figure out ways to grow the economy, which I think what we need to do in Massachusetts specifically.
One area for growth, we were speaking earlier with one of our reporters who took a real close look at some of the Boston-based mutual funds, which have really had a tough decade. Fidelity, Putnam, MFS, Investment Management, for example. How important is it, as one idea, to help these investment firms rebound? They can be such a great source of tax revenue.
Yeah, I think the way that we need to look at growing Massachusetts economy is making us more competitive. We are very uncompetitive when it comes to taxes, when it comes to cost of doing business. And we need to lower those costs, both in terms of taxes, unemployment, insurance costs, and really the amount of debt that we really add on to everyone's budgets by continuing to borrow money more than what we really have, and the number continues to go up. So like the federal government, we've got to get our spending under control, or businesses are going to continually to grow outside of Massachusetts as opposed to inside of Massachusetts.
There's a real problem nationwide on tax collections. The Rockefeller Institute of Government says that tax collections fell the most in 46 years in the first 3 quarters of 2009. So, you know, this is a huge amount, and you've got to do something to increase that.
Yeah, the best way to do that is to increase employment. 70% of the revenue that comes into Massachusetts comes in the form of either withholding on income tax or on capital gains taxes, which we're not getting much of either right now. So the only way I see to do it is to increase employment. The only way we're going to get companies to start spending money and hiring people is to lower those costs on those people. So there needs to be a decrease first, and governments have to get their spending under control, which we haven't been able to do over the last 4 years.
Now, the governor is confident that there is economic rebound, that the economy in Massachusetts has bottomed and it's now starting to show recovery. In fact, the Massachusetts unemployment rate does trail the national unemployment rate. So there has been some improvement already there.
Well, they've been saying that for a year, and call me skeptical. Our unemployment actually jumped 0.7 of a point last month. So we were down and we were trending down, but last month we jumped up. So we're at 9.4. And we may see even further unemployment growth, but we're not poised to recover, at least not based on the policies of this current administration. And I've been disputing those for almost 2 years now, saying, as they continue to say, we're at the bottom, we're moving up. I don't see any evidence of that right now, and it's going to make it more difficult if we continue to spend money we don't have here in the state.
Well, right now you are the state treasurer, and I want to ask you about your state pension fund. It was a much better year this year versus last. In 2008, the pool fell 29%, including money invested with the convicted scammer Bernie Madoff. So are you investing differently? How did that work out? How were you able to recoup some of that?
Well, we didn't change too much. We did lower our exposure to hedge funds slightly, and we stayed focused on what we had been doing. We weren't forced into any illiquidity, or we didn't have to sell out of some of our investments. So we were overinvested internationally and in emerging markets, and those markets really did well last year. So we gained back quite a bit of what we lost in 2008. 2009 was a great year. I was commenting at the meeting yesterday how much different February of 2010 was from February of 2009 as we were reporting the numbers, up almost 18%. So our fund is well positioned. We did some slight changes, but not anything really drastic. I think most of what we did fire the firm that had the Madoff exposure, the hedge fund of funds that we hired back in 2007. So we fired them immediately, and we're on target to recoup most, if not all, of the hedge fund losses that we suffered in 2008.
Massachusetts State Treasurer Tim Cahill also running as an independent for governor. Thanks for your time.